Peace and bright blessings, guys. It's your Queen of Spades coming to you today on Halloween. One of my favorite times of the year. I just love it. Like, it's so magical. And I'm coming to you as Goddess Marie Lavu. So I thought I would talk with you guys a little bit about her because she was just a very interesting and intriguing woman. Very beautiful, very much a goddess in our presence and midst, and just beautiful, a beautiful human being. She did so much for, a lot of people, anything from helping people uh, with their, everyday problems and issues to even having like and owning her own hair salons so that, Black people would have a place to go to, Black women would have a place to get beautified without having to, be harassed, um, or racially profiled. Um, so I hope you guys like my costume. If you can call it that. I am dressed as Queen Marie Laveau. So, obviously, there are, well, it's not very obvious. There are many similarities between myself and Queen Marie Laveau. Um, but there's one that you guys will pick off the bat, which is that, we both are very magical women, very much into, um, the magical arts and sciences. And, I plan today to, I found like a couple of stories on Marie Laveau. So I wanted to read you all, some of the things that I found um, about her life, just right online. And there's also some things that I've heard of which I have not yet verified yet. Um, but let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. So, let's see. Uh, I did hear um, some time ago that Marie Laveau married and she had two daughters, and at some point, her husband and her first two daughters just vanished without a trace. And it could have been, anything, but it was a lot of situations back then where blacks trying to establish themselves and with different businesses and things like that were kind of like picked off. Um, Certain people didn't want blacks to, rise up. They didn't want them to gain financial security and stability, and they didn't want other blacks to see them and um, actually like get the idea to do the same thing. So, it makes a lot of sense that that happened with her, because it happened with a lot of blacks around that time. Um, they could have been picked up by someone. They could have been picked up by someone and murdered, like, you know, anything could have happened. They could have been forced to leave that city, that town, um, and there were no cell phones back then, so maybe they had no way of, reaching back to Marie Laveau. Um, I bought my pendulum here for just in case I needed it. So I want to ask, um, Marie Laveau's first husband and two daughters, were they murdered, Spirit? Wow, that's so unfortunate. That's a yes, guys. She suffered a lot of heartbreak. She suffered, a lot of different things. Um, her father was a white businessman, from my understanding, and her mother was a freed slave, um, black woman. Um, so she earned her, freedom, or, that specific time it was, you know, black people started to take it. Like they weren't waiting to for it to be given. So I'm gonna read this to you guys. No matter if you go on a voodoo tour, ghost tour, or historical tour throughout the streets of New Orleans, you're almost guaranteed to hear legends and stories surrounding Marie Laveau. She was and still is the voodoo queen. It says in this area, but of all time, possibly. Marie was a Creole woman who had strong beliefs and she played by her own rules. Stop right there. That's another thing that her and I have in common. I would be considered a black Creole um, woman because, there's a lot of mixture of, there's predominantly black, but then there's also in my bloodline white, French, um, native, native Indian, goodness, I'm trying to, Cherokee Indian. Um, with that mixture, that would technically make me a black Creole woman as well. Um, so that's something else we have in common. She was also surrounded by religious and political figures who were very influential. She was a beloved trailblazer for women. However, her dedication to confidentiality and her strong convictions ensured that she's still shrouded in mystery to this day. Her early life. Many people believe that Marie Laveau was born in New Orleans in the French Quarter around 1801. Marie's mother was a freed slave named Margaret uh, Darkentrell. Darkentrell. And she was also the mistress of Marie's father, Charles Laveau, a wealthy businessman. Once Margaret gave birth, she left Marie with her grandmother. And this is just what this is saying. I have not verified totally and completely yet. Marie was also the firstborn to be free in her family, and her great grandmother originally came as a slave to New Orleans from West Africa. Marie's grandmother was bought by a free woman of color, and she eventually bought her freedom and built a very small house in the vibrant French Quarter. This is where Marie Laveau would grow up and ultimately gain the title of the Voodoo Queen. She was a very devout Catholic throughout her life, and the voodoo she practiced wasn't impartable with her faith. In the front room of her cottage, you'd find multiple altars filled with holy images, candles, and offerings. She led weekly meetings for both white and black customers, and the participants would dress all in white, sing and chant, and leave offerings for the spirit. She combined Catholic traditions and Catholic traditions with voodoo beliefs, including using incense, holy water, Christian prayers, and statues of saints to make voodoo and hoodoo more acceptable to New Orleans' upper class. She believed in recognizing spiritual forces that preside over everyday life and can be mischievous. She believed she could connect to these spirits using music, dance, singing, and snakes. It was from this that Marie's reputation and the legend began to grow. The Voodoo Queen emerges. There is a lot of speculation surrounding exactly how Marie gained this title as the Voodoo Queen. One theory runs with the idea that she was trained under uh, Senete Dede, 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 and Marie Salape. I hope I'm not screwing up their names. Another theory claims that Marie was a student of the Revered Dr. John. Hmm. Finally, others say that her grandmother and mother would have raised her with a collaboration between voodoo and Catholicism, and they were both devout Catholics. If you visit New Orleans and take a ghost or cemetery tour, the guide will enthrall you with tales about the Voodoo Queen's gatherings in Congo Square and her followers. Congo Square is just a quick walk from the Lavu Glapion house on Saint Anne over Rampart Street. During the 1800s, Code Noir granted holidays and Sundays to enslaved people in New Orleans. They would spend this valuable free time fishing, cultivating gardens, doing activities that would give them goods to trade or sell. Many of them would head over to St. Augustine's Church for service before going to Congo Square to set up their stalls to sell their goods. Congo Square eventually turned into a community center by the middle of the 1800s for the people of color in New Orleans. On Sundays, Marie Laveau would go to Congo Square and offer advice, sell gree bags, and offer services to the community while partaking in the celebration. This is where whispers talk about her performing spiritual celebrations, singing, becoming filled with the Loa spirits, and conjuring the great serpent spirit. The celebration at Congo Square happened weekly, but there was a single night each year that was sacred to the Creole people who were voodoo practitioners, called St. John's Eve, also known as the Eve of the Feast of St. John Baptiste. This is an annual observance of Midsummer's Eve or the summer solstice. This particular date is celebrated among many religions and cultures, and it has a rich and ancient history that dates back to the Druids, the Celtics, and various European pagan rituals. For the voodoo community in New Orleans, celebration meant ritual bathing in sacred water and starting bonfires to commune around. Like the celebrations at Congo Square on Sundays, the ceremonies on St. John's Eve was rumored to be led by the Voodoo Queen. And we know that voodoo is actually pronounced voodoo. Today on Bayou St. John in New Orleans, the St. John's Eve celebration is still very much revered and alive. It brings together those with a respectful curiosity with the practicing voodoo community, and you'll find everyone dressed in white. Many years later, you'll find Sally and Glassman, a local voodoo priestess, leading the celebration. A quiet end. Marie Laveau passed away in her sleep in her cottage on June 15th, 1881, just shy of her 80th birthday. The records at New Orleans Cemetery prove that she is in the Widow Paris tomb at the St. Louis number one cemetery. To date, her tomb is one of the most visited in all of the cemeteries in New Orleans. However, not all visitors are respectful, and there have been several instances of vandalism. This became such a severe problem that the Archdiocese, I believe that's pronounced, and New Orleans Catholic cemeteries no longer allow anyone to enter the cemetery without a licensed tour guide. The guide has to hold a permit from the Archdiocese and New Orleans Catholic cemeteries. Whether Marie Laveau was actually a very smart entrepreneur who knew how valuable it was to give people the show they wanted, or if she was a powerful priestess, she remains a fascinating historical figure due to the fact that she was a black woman who wielded significant power during the days of slavery in the Deep South. So that's her story, guys. And I've always connected with her so much. Um, when I learned of her, I was like, wow, like she feels like intensely connected with me. And it may be just our Creole roots for the most part. Um, but yeah, she was a very dazzling soul, and you know, I have deep reverence and respect for her and what she stood for, not only as a Vodun priestess, but also as a black woman here, um, who tried to make something of herself and succeeded. Um, she was definitely a great example for others coming from the same state and slavery as well, to not accept, the conditions that you're in, but to rise above it. And she basically was that shining example. And there were others, but she was a prominent, shining example in her time, um, as an example to not just other black women, but, black people overall. Like, you can do this. Like, you definitely can rise above your situation and circumstances. And she proved it with her own life, just by being, herself, and just by being, as successful as she was. She was a beautiful human being. Lots of people loved her. She helped lots of people left and right. If anybody came to her with problems, she knew exactly um, what rituals to whip out to help them. Or, if somebody needed money, they were going through financial troubles, she just looked out for all the people in her community. And she became so popular, she crossed color lines. She knew how to attract customers of all races. And so she had white customers, she had black customers, and many different others. And they came from miles away to see her, to visit with her, to be in her presence and her energy, and to get some of that healing from her, that natural healing from her. And she was never opposed or selfish. Um, she was a good woman overall, a very beautiful soul. And you know, the people from that time remembered her as someone who had helped them in different circumstances and situations. She was for fairness, she was for justice, and she was for equality. And yeah, those are the same things that I stand for as well. So that's something else that is a similarity between um, the both of us. I respect the queen and I love her. And, I have a deep reverence for her um, because I've always felt an intense connection with her. Um, who knows, by the time I finish researching my family bloodline, I may find out that we were related. Who knows, I don't know. Um, but even if we weren't related, our origin, um, our roots are similar. And yeah, she is definitely one to continue to be lifted up in respect and love and cherishment. Um, there will be many other voodoo priestess and um, goddesses that are healers and natural shaman energy, but there will never be another Marie Laveau like it was. Um, oh, and I meant to ask one more little thing. Um, will Marie Laveau ever reincarnate again? That's a yes, guys. Has she incarnated in this lifetime? And that's a yes. So she's walking around us in our midst today, and we don't even know who she is. So, but that's beautiful. It's wonderful. Wow. Feel honored and blessed to have even known, a figure like her. So, well, that's all I have on the most beautiful, elegant Marie Laveau. And hopefully, you guys enjoy this video. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Peace and bright blessings.